Muroc Army Airfield, California, May 1943.
There is an uncontrollably raging fire.
Barracks, a general's staff car, and an auxiliary hangar are all reduced to burning, charred skeletons.
The disaster at Muroc Army Airfield in May 1943 was one of the costliest fires in Army history.
This was not an attack by the enemy.
No sabotage took place.
They weren't human arsonists. Bats had just unintentionally and disastrously firebombed the base. The first indication that a top-secret weapon, developed from one of the most unusual concepts in military history, was frighteningly powerful was this strange, almost ludicrous catastrophe. Industrial strength was at the center of the Second World War.
Of bombers, of battleships, of tanks.
But the Allied command was prepared to listen to anyone in the mad, desperate hunt for an advantage.
The United States was in turmoil in the gloomy days following December 7, 1941.
The country needs a means of retaliation.
One such weakness was the focus of American war strategists.
Japanese cities were distinct from those in the West.
They were huge, open spaces made almost entirely of paper, bamboo, and wood.
An impending, flaming nightmare.
To take advantage of this, the U.S. military was already creating weapons.
However, the man who came up with the most unusual answer wasn't a general.
A physicist was not what he was.
Lytle S. Adams was a Pennsylvania-born dental surgeon.
Furthermore, his proposal sounded like pure fiction when it was delivered straight to the White House.
His goal was to turn millions of bats into weapons.
Lytle Adams had the thought while on vacation in Carlsbad Caverns, New Mexico.
A living vortex darkening the sky, he stared in awe as millions of Mexican free-tailed bats erupted from the cave.
Adams studied naturalism as a hobby.
He was aware of the bat's strength. They moved far and wide.
They were so many.
Most significantly, they would locate enclosed, dark areas to roost for the day after hunting all night. Areas such as attics, barns,
And the building eaves.
This meant that millions of small, living, guided missiles would find there.
Own hiding place inside a highly flammable building in a Japanese city.
Adams submitted his plan to the White House on January 12, 1942, a month after Pearl Harbor. FDR wrote, "This man is not a nut, Envan. It sounds like a perfectly wild idea, but is worth looking into."
The project received approval.
The code name assigned to it was Project X-Ray.
Two important inventions were needed for the plan.
He gave his hesitant but inquisitive approval to the memo.
A bomb first.
Louis Fieser was one of the Army's top scientists.
Had just created was a jellied gasoline known as napalm. The groundbreaking, horrifying new material that Fieser, a Harvard chemist,
he produced. Fieser developed an incendiary device weighing 17.5 grams.
His new napalm was inside a copper cylinder. It was a clever fuse. A firing pin was restrained by a copper wire. A copper chloride solution gradually and predictably eroded this wire. The napalm would ignite when the pin struck a primer after the wire broke. A tiny clip was used to surgically fasten the entire apparatus to the bat's chest.
The delivery system was the second invention. A bat bomb canister was created by engineers.
The tube was 5 feet long and held 26 stacked trays. Each tray had 40 bats that were hibernating. One canister contained 1,040 bats. The idea was to fly over a target city, such as Osaka, with a B-24 bomber. The canisters would fall out of it. The canister would disintegrate and a parachute would open at 1,000 feet.
Now that they were free of their chili trays, the greater horseshoe bats would start to stir in the warmer air.
They would follow bat behavior.
In an attempt to find cover from the incoming dawn, they would disperse and fly for miles in all directions.
They would infiltrate the shadowiest areas of residences, workplaces, and storage facilities.
Then their little 30-minute fuses would light, one by one. The outcome?
Not a single big fire that could be put out. However, the city's firefighters were overpowered by thousands of tiny fires that began simultaneously from the inside out.
Theoretically, the fire was uncontrollable.
It was a good theory. It was a chaotic practice.
This takes us back to May 1943. at Muroc, California.
A jar of bats, some of which were equipped with live incendiaries, was inadvertently opened during a test. Not yet completely hibernated, the bats awoke and took off.
They carried out their assigned tasks precisely. The barracks, a general's automobile, and the bases recently.
Constructed auxiliary hangars were the closest structures where they slept.
The fuses burned through minutes later.
They burned the base.
In a moment of grim military irony, the official report said the incident proved the weapon's concept was viable.
The project was transferred right away.
Embarrassed, the Army moved the potentially flammable project to the Carlsbad Army.
Airfield in New Mexico, far from its costly aircraft.
It made no difference.
Once more, the bats struck. Once more, the bats struck.
They flew straight to the barracks and control tower at the airfield and burned them down too.
Without ever sighting the adversary, Project X-Ray.
Enough was enough for the Army Air Forces.
Has now destroyed 2 different Amera Army installations.
They handed the project over to the U.S. Navy in late 1943 after declaring it a failure.
The Marines were assigned to conduct a last, definitive test of the bat bomb.
It was make or break time now.
In Utah, the Marines built a life-site model of a Japanese hamlet at the Dugway Proving Ground.
This Japanese village was painstakingly constructed with the same paper and wood that are frequently found in Tokyo.
09, they set the test.
They loaded the bat bombs.
Bombers dropped the canisters as they passed over the target.
They dispersed.
They slept.
The outcome was a spectacular, horrifying triumph.
The Dugway test's official report was clear-cut.
Standard incendiary bombs produced a few fires, but these could be extinguished, according to an observer.
In contrast, the bat bombs caused fires in every part of the village, so that there was a general conflagration.
The weapon was effective. The military's own data showed that it was more effective than the conventional incendiary bombs of the time. The dentist, Lethal Adams, felt vindicated. The napalm inventor, Louis Fieser, referred to the test as incendiary.
Incendiary.
His perfectly wild idea was now a tried-and-true military tactic.
Midway through 1944, full-scale production was anticipated.
And then Project X-ray was abruptly canceled in early 1944, just as it was beginning to show results.
The fleet's commander-in-chief, Fleet Admiral Ernest King, shut it down.
The formal explanation?
It was too slow.
The complicated project wouldn't be prepared for full-scale deployment for at least another year.
And the bats were unpredictable and difficult to control.
The military had made the decision to take a more traditional, albeit harsh, approach. High-altitude, large-scale firebombing with B-29s, utilizing gigantic M69 bombs that contained napalm, Louis Fieser's other innovation.
However, there was another, more covert explanation.
The U.S. government was investing billions of dollars in a new, covert weapon by 1944.
The dentist Lytle Adams would later assert that his creation might have saved more lives than it cost. And could have brought the war to a quicker conclusion.
We'll never be able to know.
One of the most peculiar what-ifs in history is still the bat bomb, a top-secret scheme that originated
and turned out to be both too effective and too odd for the modern world. The Bat Bomb, a top-secret scheme that originated in a cave and turned out to be both too effective and too odd for the modern world.